kind of hoping today's session wouldn't go on for ages, but, like, oh well.
Welcome everyone! We are the Grin brothers, and we're continuing our playthrough of Dragon's Crown Pro. The problem that you've said here with your argument is you're trying to ask, you know, with your comment before, is you're trying to ask me specifically for Microsoft and Sony exclusives, which Microsoft have barely had any exclusives.
Well, you can call Nintendo exclusives if you want.
No, I meant just in general companies' games. Like, it shouldn't be... Because you've been doing most of your gaming on PC anyway.
Yeah, I know, and there's still not much original coming out on PC. So there's not really any
Sony exclusives.
Like, my thing is just in general on consoles and stuff, and like there's nothing that feels... Game companies aren't experimenting. Like, look at, like, when you look at the older games, look at the weird kind of variety of games that we ended up with. Even within, like, the same genre of game, you still had weird experimentation. Nowadays, so many games are just, like, gritty, realistic graphics or whatever, with the same gameplay you've seen 1,000 times, and the same story you've seen 1,000 times.
Or leave quiet. Which path will you take?
Escape.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. As someone that works in a game store, where primarily the stuff we sell is, you know, the popular console games and stuff.
Oh, well, you won't probably see that much variety in that point anyway. I mean, you think, back in the NES, despite how people say about its creativity, pretty much almost every game was of the major games were platformers.
Yeah.
On the, meanwhile, you know, like on the sort of PC sort of format, you were mostly going either shoot-em-ups or a skeleton ally.
Yeah, you resurrected a skeleton.
Oh! It's an oil-equipped thing, okay.
When you attack the skeleton, it resurrects them.
Oh,
but you can only have one at a time, because you've only got rank 1.
Oh, okay, I wasn't getting that before, because I thought it was a, maybe it would take up one of my spell slots.
I thought it... I didn't remember how it worked, so... yeah, no, like... I look at the games and stuff that are around, and nothing feels like it's experimenting. Even indie games, like, yeah, there are some that do, and they're cool and all, but, like, a lot of them kind of do the same sort of stuff. It's like, here's your little indie platformer. Bet you've not had enough of these. I don't know. Like, that's from my perspective of someone who works in a game store and sees a lot of the games that come out.
Yeah.
There's, like, very little experimentation amongst game companies. Like, it's a lot harder to find the weird little games.
What, like Galgun 2 or Samurai Kagura Peach Beach Splash or...
Yeah. Like... B-listed companies don't really... Maybe it's because it's all digital or something now, but...
Well, B-lister companies don't really exist. As someone said, the problem with the current market is after Gen 6 and the HD era, there became only 2 types of games, either AAA or indie games.
Yeah.
You don't get AA, with exception to... well, pretty much with the exception to Nintendo and the odd Japanese game company, you don't really get the sort of A/AA games, as it were.
Yeah.
Because most of those companies went under.
Yeah.
I mean, a company which did produce what I'd call AA games or A games would have been THQ. That's one of the few Western examples I can think of, but they're particularly dead.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
There's because now companies' games have to be really big budget.
Yes, and I don't like
or
that.
they're super indie. It's not. There's no middle ground anymore between them.
Yeah.
This, I'd say, is a AA game. It's not a AAA game.
No, it's not.
It's not an indie game either. So this fits in the category of a AA you're talking about.
Yes.
And it's probably where you've got when indies say they have room for experimentation, but you'll see that they'll often either hint very heavily on nostalgia or use a pixel art style to avoid problems, to avoid costs.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, it's a weird thing. It's like, yeah, there are games that can do it, but like, I don't know.
Well, let's see. Well, thinking of my game purchases this year, games I've played. Well, the new games I've played this year haven't been many. I mean, it's Dead or Alive 6, Kingdom Hearts 3, and Bloodstained. And really, I'd say the only one that's been great for me has been Bloodstained, because Dead or Alive 6 is, which is funny because it was a game I wasn't even considering purchasing at first. Dead or Alive 6 is just unfortunately weaker than Dead or Alive 5 last round in every way. There's no reason to get Dead or Alive 6 over Dead or Alive 5 last round unless you really care for a not very great story. It's got a good first half because it's just the characters messing about, but then goes downhill. And Kingdom Hearts 3, whilst a good game, is unfortunately disappointing compared to the rest of the series, particularly with my previous one having Birth by Sleep.
Yeah.
Which is the best in the series in my opinion.
Yeah. I believe there are people that actually don't like that game. I couldn't imagine being so wrong.
But let's...
Oh my god, Ranny! Stop this. This is your fault. You were like, hey, we haven't had many traps.
We haven't had many traps, and now we're getting lots of traps.
It's gonna do this so we stop taking poison damage.
Oh. Oh, and we get a torch. Kind of the worst area for it, but...
Definitely the worst area for it, because everything sets on fire anyway, and you kind of don't want that.
Let's see, last year. Well, last year, my big games for it... Well, last year for me had SNK Heroines, Galgun 2, Soul Calibur 6, which admittedly, I've got to say, Soul Calibur 6 did experiment in the story department for a fighting game.
It did, yes.
And I think it actually, fun. Yeah, it made it honestly one of the best story modes. And they still have what feels like an arcade mode story mode, which you actually expand by doing your own campaign. Because, you know, you get that little Chronicle mode showcasing the canonical events. We unlock extra events for the characters to go through, specifically only from doing the story mode.
Yeah.
Which are basically against, you know, relating to events that you've also explored from your side in the story mode.
Yeah.
You basically see what's happening with Helix in that during your adventure, specifically. So yeah, Soul Calibur exists in a pre-established IP, experimented with what they were doing in fighting game genre.
Yeah.
Whilst it wasn't one I ended up enjoying, Dragon Ball FighterZ did show a fighting game which managed to almost completely replicate an anime art style,
yes.
Or at least to a degree of what people think it looks like. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't look quite as crisp as people remember. But to be fair, that's the art style that, you know. I mean, people can show that through old art style screenshot redraws.
Yeah.
As they showed with Dragon Ball Super, ironically looking better in the older artwork. Okay, it was kind of... Oh, come on. Let's see here. SNK Heroines was a simple fighting system off the original SNK style. Not really anything unique there per se, admittedly. But it was enjoyable. It's kind of interesting. It was kind of like combining the sort of Smash Bros. Pie element, but with a traditional fighter, which I guess is a somewhat unique aspect to it.
He stunned me. A bit rude. Hey, a bomb.
Let's see, other games. Let's see, Octopath Traveler was another big one for me last year.
Octopath was fun.
But then again, the best game for me was the one which didn't experiment at all. That was Kirby Star Allies. It was actually entirely because it didn't experiment that I liked it.
Yeah, but that's a sequel.
Because I was, well, to be fair, I guess you could almost say that in a sense, Octopath Traveler was a spiritual successor to the Bravely Default because it followed a lot of the core things that the team does work on.
I mean, yeah.
It's not like they completely went a different direction.
But, like, think
it was
about
built upon
so,
the
like,
ideas of Bravely Default. And Bravely Default is a spiritual successor to classic Final Fantasy.
So look at it this way.
Though, hey, that was also a pretty unique mechanic they did with the Bravely Default system
This
to
is
expand
like
upon traditional RPG.
a weird thing. So I've gone on and on about how much I want Shining Soul 2 to get a spiritual successor.
Yeah.
Now, technically speaking, that wouldn't be something new. But at the same time...
It'd feel new compared to what else is out there at the moment.
Yeah. So it's technically experimenting. It's not...
Like this God of War example we just mentioned. You know, how God of War would have been more unique and experimental by sticking to it being a hack and slash instead of trying to copy so much of the modern third-party Sony style, well, first-party Sony style.
Yeah.
It felt...
Same way Crystal Chronicles, although it's literally a remake of Crystal Chronicles, is still going to feel different compared to what's currently in the market.
Mm.
Like, too much of the current market is the same stuff.
But like I said, that was admittedly true for a lot of the older generations. It's us looking back on it that we see the more unique games. You know, before NES era, there was a lot of platformers, and that was the big focus because platform mascots were going to be the sellers. Yeah. And particularly in the Mega Drive era, you know, at first there was a lot of the arcade beam-ups of games.
So I can hand my question.
Arcade beam-ups of things, and then it ended up being more platform mascots because Sonic was popular.
Yeah.
In fact, they copied Sonic's style to an insane quality. It's why we get stuff like Bubsy.
That's true.
And speaking of that, I don't think you saw Nitro Rad's recent video.
I have.
Oh, what was it? Game?
Tonic Trouble.
Tonic Trouble. There's the example they made about tank controls.
Oh, yeah.
How tank controls were really popular. They're selling games with tank controls. So people were like, add tank controls to this 3D platformer. It only worked for one game, that being Croc, but add tank control. And even then, that was only because they specifically designed it from the ground up. That tank controls is probably how we're going to do 3D until we figure out a free control move. Darn it, Nintendo already figured that out. Well,
yeah.
At least we can say we're the best tank control platformer because our other competition is Bubsy and 3D and Jumping Flash, which is first-person tank controls.
Jesus, that sounds hideous. First-person tank control platform.
It does work slightly better. I think you have like Jumping Flash. The Rabot jumps pretty high, and he has a little hover as well. So it mechanically works out for the style, but
yeah.
Can't remember who. I think it was I know one of the YouTubers I watched. I think it may have been the Completionist. Commented that their father bought Jumping Flash thinking it was going to be the next Mario, you know, the sort of mascot for Sony. I mean, it was the early Sony platformer, but...
Yeah.
Of course it wasn't.
If.
But it was interesting seeing them try to figure out 3D platformers that Mario just proves, yeah, this is how you do it!
Yeah, Nintendo sweeping the competition. If only they could keep that up with their Pokemon games. They're sweeping something, but...
Oh, we got time to do another quick quest. I mean, it's only 13 minutes in. Want to do the Mage's Tower one? Because we know where that is, isn't it?
What is the Mage's Tower?
Or do you want to just end this? Let's see. We've got Forest Clear. Let's see. Crystal Collection. No, that's
Hunt for the Forbidden Text.
That's Lost Woods.
The Mage's Tower.
Yeah, that's the book one. We know where that is.
Well, we can just have a short episode.
Yeah, I'd make up for our 27 minute previous episode.
Yeah.
Well, I guess just mentioning. It was actually a funny thing I remember being mentioned. I think it was in a conversation for Pokemon Masters. Because, of course, people commenting on Pokemon Masters and how it's been so much better received currently than even Sword and Shield now.
Yeah.
Despite how Pokemon Masters is just going to be a small mobile game which is just going to bleed you dry because it's going to be a gacha game and you know it.
Yeah.
You know. But, to be fair, there's a reason why it's a gacha game, and I think Nintendo would approve it as well. Nintendo's example, they've got Fire Emblem Heroes and their Super Mario Bros. Runner game. Super Mario Bros. Runner you play through the demo and then you pay 10 quid, you get the rest of the game, all the content is sort of like gets thrown in for free, updated over time, and you unlock the stuff in-game, like a video game should.
And it sold terribly.
Compared to Fire Emblem Heroes, it did not sell well at all. Fire Emblem Heroes is a juggernaut in sales. And that's a gacha game. And that's how they... Someone used an example with there was a Pokemon clone game that they ended up talking about. And they said it was a really competent Pokemon clone, not as good as the main entry, but still really good. You could play through what was a good portion of it, like the first dungeon or two, as it were, effectively. And then they asked you to pay £3 to play the rest of the game. The comments for it were all people going, why would I pay £3 for this game? That's so expensive. That's the mobile market. Unless, apparently, people can't comprehend that the gachas end up paying more money through the system.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting when mobile developers are forced to do that sort of thing if they get banned from other places, because Belgium isn't getting any of these new mobile games.
Because they're loot boxes.
Because Belgium banned all the loot box games.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's a loot box.
I think Hawaii is looking into it as well, considering same steps as Belgium. And some are considering having 18 labels, rated labels. For instance, Peggy, for instance, Pokemon had to be rated as 16 for gambling. So you'd think with all these gacha games, they'd all be rated 16 as a result.
You'd think,
but it's a weirdest process where the gaming community are the ones wanting greater restrictions because they're so opposed to the gacha loot box mechanics, and it's actually more the casual audience which keeps falling for it.
Oh yeah, because it's like parents and stuff that don't pay attention to anything. Not parents necessarily, but you know what I mean, like older people.
Though there is one other funny thing to mention in gacha mechanics, particularly in regards to Nintendo.
Mm.
There is a character of Nintendo which had 0 search results. He was a character made by Nintendo and no one had ever looked him up online before. No one knew he existed. Because to discover him, you had to play Rusty's Real Deal Baseball from the Nintendo 3DS and never skip out on paying Rusty once. You had to use your real mobile money. I think it was... The total ended up being like... I think it was 20 quid or 30 quid's worth of actual cash for the free-to-play game. You had to never skip out on a single sort of... because you could skip out on various things. Use, like, tickets you get from doing well in games to not have to pay or just wait the extra day. You had to pay every time to actually get the backstory and him talking about Rusty talking about his father and a whole storyline with his father and everything. Otherwise, you never got to see him. But no one ever did the situation where they didn't skip out in void using real world money at some point. Huh. So no one had ever heard of him.
Who found out?
I can't remember. There was a YouTube report.
You'd have thought someone would have just data mined it.
Yeah, someone eventually... Well, yeah, but why data mine Nintendo eShop game Rusty's Real Deal Baseball?
Why not? It's data mined, Slim. They data mine everything.
Though it actually kind of reminded me... I mean, it's a terrible tactic, but it kind of reminded me of... and this is kind of a pleasant tactic. There was a Konami game that ended up talking about... Because Retro Gamer's recent magazine was about Konami games. And one of Konami's early games was, I think it was like Pengo? Penguin sort of like 3D racing game, as it were? Racing platformer? Like Space Harrier, but you're a penguin on ice.
Yeah.
They had a funny little mechanic. You could not unlock the best ending unless you followed to an instruction to take a break in the wild. If you never once paused the game, you couldn't unlock the best ending. You had to pause at least once.
How weird.
That was the criteria. You get to the end of the game, you don't get the best ending unless you paused. Because they suggested you take a break at some point.
How weird. Right.
Yep.